Experienced British MEPs. Labour's Richard Corbett joined the European Parliament in 1996. He's a committed European and he sees Britain's departure from the EU as a political tragedy for his country. He hopes that one day the UK might even rejoin.
In the Parliament it's quite emotional. There are many colleagues who are coming up, hugging, shaking hands, saying some very nice words. So it's at the same time heartbreaking and heartwarming. So one of my colleagues, Rory Palmer, has made this scarf, which many of us will be wearing, which reflects on the nearly half a century that we were members of the European Union, participating in this great project of unity with diversity. And maybe one day we will come back.
Although Richard Corbett firmly believes that Britain leaving the EU is a huge mistake and maybe the British will return, he feels the time has now come for him to close the chapter on this part of his life.
I'm saving up to buy a horse to ride away into the sunset.
With Farage, Corbett and many more of their country folks leaving, the Parliament is going to see some adjustments that might have a serious political impact.
My flag is not a glass of water! Go on, Brian!
Noisy. Outspoken.
Matteo Salvini is a coward.
Irreverent.
Who are you? I'd never heard of you.
British MEPs will be definitely missed at the European Parliament. From 1st of February, the political arena will be different. From the first time ever, it will reduce in size from 751 to 705 members. Brexit will also reshuffle the balance of powers between the political groups. The centre-right European People's Party will be the big winner from Brexit. It doesn't have any British MEPs to lose, and it will gain 5 more when the UK seats are shared out. Also for nationalists, Brexit is a blessing. The right-wing ID group will overtake the Greens, becoming the 4th largest group in the European Parliament. But it's too early to claim victory. The loss of the Brexit Party delegation will weaken nationalist opposition to most common policies, while pro-European forces get stronger on crucial topics such as environment.
European political groups that are supporting the Commission as a whole, when we take the Socialists and Democrats, the Liberals and the centre-right EPP, they as a whole gain in influence after Brexit. So for green issues, it will not be such an issue to see the Greens slightly lose in influence.
However, the real challenge for the biggest political family will be the internal harmony.
It is important to also follow whether EPP will be able to capitalize on this numerical advantage, whether it will be cohesive, which is depending on policy area. You also have to agree within the group. It's not enough to have big numbers.
The conflict with its Hungarian member Fidesz might mean its 12 MEPs move to the Eurosceptic ECR group led by Polish Justice and Law Party. This could erase the gains made by EPP in the post-Brexit Parliament. Elena Cavallone, Euronews, Brussels.
That's it for this special Brexit edition. We'll be back next weekend. Take care and goodbye.
Prime Minister met his cabinet in Sunderland in north-eastern Britain. A symbolic move by the PM. Sunderland was the first place to vote for Brexit in the summer of 2016.
And the evening campaign is celebrating in Parliament Square, and that's half 9 minutes to it right now. And if you travel the country out speaking about the vote for Brexit, didn't vote for Brexit, tonight you are surrounded by a crowd of people who've been campaigning hard for this. What is the atmosphere like?
count down the last 2 minutes of Britain's membership of the EU, let's reflect on exactly 4 years ago when I was doing the referendum. Who would have thought? We knew the result obviously on the night, and many of us had guessed the trend. But who would have thought it was going to take the best part of 3.5 to 4 years on this day?
Well, interestingly, at the time when you spoke to experts or ambassadors, they said this will be protracted, this will require it will take years, if not decades. So the people that have the experience working for agencies, they're from the very start, but everybody else.
But let's not forget the Prime Minister. We've been through 3 Prime Ministers. This whole thing started with David Cameron. It went through Theresa May. It's ended up with Boris Johnson. And it's seen into a second European Commission. 1 minute to go before Britain officially leaves the European Union and the negotiations begin for what comes next.
And let's not forget the other Conservative Prime Ministers that were told by the issue of Europe. They feel like they have
History in the making. It's 11 p.m. in London, midnight in Central Europe, and the UK is no longer a member of the European Union. Hello and welcome to Euronews' special Brexit coverage of this highly significant moment.
I'm Vincent McAviney in London. As Britain leaves, Prime Minister Boris Johnson says he wants to work to reunite the country after almost 4 years of bitter Brexit wrangling, deadlock and delay.
And I'm Darren McCaffrey here in Brussels as the EU presidents insist the union will remain strong as Britain turns towards isolation. But the Brexit book is not finished as trade talks begin and the question of whether a deal can be done by the end of the year.
I'm Rosie Wright, here on the streets of London, gauging the public's reaction, where here Brexit supporters are celebrating, but others are commiserating the UK leaving the EU.
Brexit is now a reality. Here in the Cube, our social media news desk will bring you all the online conversation, the celebrations, the sadness, and the messages of solidarity.
The countdown is over and history has been made. Brexit is now a reality and the United Kingdom is no longer a member of the European Union. It's been 3 years, 7 months and 4 days since UK citizens voted to leave the bloc in the 2016 referendum. Brexit was a divisive issue for the country then, as it remains today. But people from both sides of that divide have been meeting in London to mark the end of a 47-year relationship with the European Union. Earlier on, we heard from Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who spoke in a pre-recorded message from 10 Downing Street, promising a new era for the UK.
For all its strengths and for all its admirable qualities, the EU has evolved over 50 years in a direction that no longer suits this country. And that is a judgment that you, the people, have now confirmed at the polls not once but twice. And yet, this moment is far bigger than that. It's not just about some legal extrication. It is potentially a moment of real national renewal and change. This is the dawn of a new era.
Let's head over to London now for the very latest, where we can speak to our UK correspondent, Vincent McAviney.
Well, that is it. The UK is out, as you were saying there, Oliver. We are no longer a part of the European Union. Article 50, designed as a theoretical, an exit mechanism, not really thought that through, we understood, over the last couple of years as we tried to go through it. It has taken the UK, though, out of the European Union into this transition period of 11 months. There are thousands of people just over the bridge there by Parliament celebrating this. But up and down this country, there are millions who will be happy, millions who will be disappointed. This was an issue that for the last 4 years of the campaign and the time since the referendum, but beyond that as well, it has divided friendship groups, families, workplaces right down the country. And tonight Boris Johnson has set forth his task. He needs to now be a unifier. He's the man who's claimed for years he has a plan for Brexit. He can get those trade deals, not just with Europe, but around the world, with Britain now acting as a much smaller presence at the negotiating table. This is what he had to say a short while ago.
The most important thing to say tonight is that this is not an end, but a beginning. This is the moment when the dawn breaks and the curtain goes up on a new act in our great national drama. And yes, it's partly about using these new powers, this recaptured sovereignty, to deliver the changes people voted for, whether that is by controlling immigration or creating free ports or liberating our fishing industry or doing free trade deals or simply making our laws and rules for the benefit of the people of this country.
So if Britain has actually taken back control, then it's for Boris Johnson to really set the course, set the direction. He needs to get to work pretty quickly, and he's someone who both in his personal and professional life has made some mistakes along the way and tried to shirk the responsibility. But from now on, the European Union can no longer really be a bogeyman for British politicians of both the Labour and Conservative parties when they're in government, blaming all the things that they don't like or can't quite change on Brussels, maybe rightly or wrongly at some points. This will all be down now to the decisions made just over there in Parliament on Whitehall and in number 10 Downing Street. What Boris Johnson, with that huge majority, with real support in his party, decides that he is going to do. It will all be down to him. And when those people leave here tonight after having celebrated out here in the little bit of cold, little bit of wet, it is now for the country to try to come together. Many people tonight on social media signalling that it is perhaps time, if you're a Leaver or a Remainer, to put this behind you and try to forge a new Britain. But there are those tonight with some apprehensions. And now we'll just go to Brussels to hear the reaction there with Darren McCaffrey.
Yeah, good evening, Vincent, and indeed to the viewers watching across Europe. I am live outside the European Parliament, where it must be said, after a remarkably quiet day in which we have hardly seen anything really to remark, this particularly significant and historic day for the European Union, a small gathering of people, a couple of hundred, have gathered here outside the European Parliament to listen in a rather impromptu way to some speakers, including a former now Liberal Democrat MEP who's addressing the public here in a kind of candlelit vigil almost. But as I say, it has been quite remarkable in many ways today just how little there has been to market. We've seen some flags lowered in different parts of this city, the EU institutions, but ultimately the EU have made a very conscious decision to make it low-key. Let's see if we can go and talk to Catherine. Can I just grab you for a second? We're just live on. You're now no longer an MEP.
I'm now a retired lady.
Just very briefly, what are your thoughts as the clock has struck midnight and Britain has left?
I'm heartbroken. I'm heartbroken because I know that the door has shut for so many young people, that the opportunities that Europe brings them have closed to them, and I know that they will work to come and rejoin us here in the European Union. The UK has paid for most of these buildings. We have worked and developed these buildings and the laws and the regulations. We have had a huge impact. Our voice has gone.
Catherine Brither, thank you very much indeed for joining us outside with your candle tonight. Let's just go and grab the views just to some more people. Sorry guys, can I just interrupt for 1 second? I mean, it's clearly, in many ways, which has not been reflected, quite an upsetting night for some. Why have you guys gathered here, and what are your thoughts?
We work up there, well, until today, and we've lost not only the EU, but like dream jobs, friends, and it's just, I can't believe it.
We lost the diversity of working with colleagues from all across Europe for some projects by Nigel Farage, which means nothing to most people in the UK. It's not the real politics of the UK.
Thank you very much, guys. Take care. There you go. As I say, it is, for many people, quite an emotional night. This is simply not just about politics. It is about identity. It is about what they see as their place, not just in the European Union, but what they would like to see as the continent of Europe too. The difficult work has been